Hey there, and welcome to No Recipe Required. I'm Dave, head chef tonight. What I'm going to do is a mac and cheese version. This is actually going to be a blue cheese mac and cheese, as opposed to the normal cheddar cheese, jack cheese, Parmesan cheese. We're going to use blue cheese with some macaroni. Tastes really awesome. It gives obviously that nice salty tanginess. We're going to cut it though. I like to top mine with actually a little bit of diced apple. And that apple blue cheese combination, it's a natural pair, and it goes really well on the mac and cheese. Let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, for our blue cheese mac and cheese, I just added about 1/3 of a pound of macaroni to some boiling water. I'm actually going to add just a touch more. I just added it. Obviously, if it's more than a minute or so, you don't want to add additional pasta in there. Salted boiling water. We need to cook this off to a firm al dente, because we are going to bake it off in the oven again. Give it a nice little stir, and then I'm just going to let this cook till it is cooked to that al dente. We'll drain it. Then while it's going, we're going to make our cheese sauce. We'll add it all together, and then we'll have our mac and cheese. Okay, let's get going with our blue cheese mac and cheese. I've got a roux here. Use a standard recipe, half butter, half flour, to make a blonde roux. Let it cook for about 5 minutes or so, and now I'm going to add about a pint, between half a pint and a pint of cream. Now you can use heavy cream. You can also use milk. You can use a combination of cream and milk. Ultimately, we're making a bechamel sauce, and that is going to turn into a cheese sauce. You can see how how quickly my roux absorbed that cream. That's totally normal. I like to just add a little bit at a time. This helps me prevent lumps. So I'm going to stir until it again, the roux just absorbs that milk. I'm going to continue to add the milk until we get a nice sauce consistency. You definitely need to bring this to the boil to get the full thickening power, kind of all blended in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. If at the end of the day, if it ends up being more than half a pint, like I said, it's half a pint to a pint. That should do it. If you need a little bit more, add a little bit more. Not going to be a killer or anything like that. So let's just I'm just going to keep mixing this together till we get to like I said, the boil. We'll get a nice smooth sauce together, and then we'll blue cheese it. All right, so I've got my bechamel sauce. This was easily probably 3/4 of a pint. I went a little bit over, and you know what? I also decided that I needed a little bit thinner, so I started adding skim milk instead of cream, just to keep it a little bit lighter. Like mac and cheese recipes, the worldwide, I like to keep my bechamel sauce a little bit thinner than you might think, because we are going to bake it off. The pasta is going to hit it. Pasta has starch in it, and that's going to kind of thicken the sauce as well. We can always add more milk, more cream, more water to thin it out. So now that we've got our sauce, I'm going to add some black pepper, and I'm also going to add our blue cheese. Good amount of black pepper there. For this amount, I've got again probably a pint's worth of sauce here. I'm going to call that 3 tablespoons of blue cheese. We'll just kind of break it up a little bit, add it directly to the sauce. Again, you can always add more blue cheese. Let me get a little napkin here. You can add more blue cheese if it's not cheesy enough for you, but you want to add that in, stir it up. I don't particularly like to boil the sauce once I add the cheese in here. If you do, it's possible the cheese, the fat that's in the cheese can separate from it, and you end up with kind of a bit of a greasy mess, or you can. So I like to turn the heat down to low and just let that cheese melt in. Once it's melted, we'll add the pasta in. Okay, so it took about 5 minutes for me to get that first wave of blue cheese in, and 2 things. One, you got to taste it, and while I get that blue cheese, it's not really quite powerful enough for me. So I'm actually going to add a little bit more, and you can just repeat this process until you get it to the flavor that you want. I do want to make sure I can taste it here, because we're going to add the pasta It's not going to get more powerful when you add the pasta in there. It kind of dilutes it, if anything. The other thing I've noticed is the time it takes to cook the cheese, sauce is thickened a little bit more. So I want to add a little bit more milk there and just keep it at the consistency that I want it to do. Totally fine, you know, off recipe, but that's what we're all about. So I'm just going to let that stir. Once we come back, we'll be ready to add the pasta. Okay, my cheese is melted. I give it a taste. It's to where I want it. I can definitely taste the blue cheese. Now, notice, or I don't know if you did notice, but I didn't salt it until now. Because the blue cheese contains a lot of salt, I really want to get that flavor together before I add salt. Otherwise, I might end up with too salty a dish. It's again kind of knowing your ingredients, knowing what you're adding, making sure you don't go too far too early with something like salt. So here I've got our pasta that we cooked off. I'm going to add this, drained it obviously. I'm going to add it directly into my blue cheese bechamel. Okay, so for our blue cheese mac and cheese, I'm going to do little individual portions. You can apply this exact same technique to a larger baking dish. Same thing. I'm just going to fill my little bowl here with a nice little healthy amount of mac and cheese. I like to, you know, if I spill on the edges, I like to clean it up a little bit because it's likely to burn a little bit. And then I'm going to just put a little bit of Parmesan cheese right on top, just to help get a little brown in there. We'll pop this in the oven at like 380 or so degrees, almost 400 degrees, for about 15 minutes or so. You want that crust to get nice and brown. You can also pop it in the broiler. That will help. Once it's done, we're going to remove it. We'll add our little special topping. Okay, so for our blue cheese mac and cheese, I'm going to make this garnish off of out of apples. Apples and blue cheese, they have just kind of a magical combination. Blue cheese and fruit are absolutely awesome together. What I've got here is some julienne apples. Now, to do the julienne, you go ahead and you make a kind of a side cut, or you get a piece of the apple like this. Then make a plank by laying it flat on the board, nice and steady. Go to the side, and you can get a couple planks like that. Then lay the planks down, and then go straight through, however thin or thick you want. And you get these nice matchsticks out of them. Now for our topping, we're going to do little dice. And so for our dice, you just line up our matchsticks. You know, you got to use a reasonable amount, something you're comfortable with. I think this looks good. You know, lay those nice in a row, and then just go right down through them. And you got a nice little dice. Now, the other thing important to do, you can definitely do this, you know, anywhere from an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in advance. Keep them in the fridge. But apples tend to turn brown, as I'm sure you're aware, in the air. The way to prevent that is with just a little bit of lemon juice. So we've got our dice. I'm going to throw them into a little bowl here that I can hold in the fridge. And just take a, you know, nice little fresh cut lemon. It doesn't take much. A little squeeze. Toss them. And the acid and the lemon will make sure the apples stay nice and fresh and clean looking, as opposed to the brown color. Once you toss those, we're good to go. While we wait for our mac and cheese to finish off. Alright, so I just pulled my macaroni and cheese, blue cheese macaroni and cheese out of the oven. Like I said, this is a great twist on the classic. Another great twist is this garnish. So I've got a little bit of apple that I just diced up, and just lay this right on top of each piece, or each side. Again, if you're doing this in a larger baking dish, you can do it the same way, or do it after you serve out a few portions. That's it. I'll see you next time on No Recipe Required.